And we start another episode of Denmark and Marsh today on this Tuesday, March 26th on the 1010XL podcast platform, wherever you get your podcast needs, whether it be Apple, Google, Spotify, or on Facebook Live right now, which reminds myself to share it on Facebook for all my boomers that are on there. I appreciate you. And we're on YouTube at some time later today on this Tuesday afternoon. I am Dylan Denmark alongside Graham Marsh momentarily, making sure we're good on the camera and all things of that nature. It was a pretty busy weekend from the last time that we spoke. I think we spoke Thursday morning, which was right before the tournament started. So we had known that Florida was going to play Colorado. We did not know that they were going to give up 102 points and lose on a game-winning shot. Doug Pederson spoke with the media yesterday for 30 minutes at the owners' meeting. We have a couple of changes along with the NFL with rules and that nature. But Graham, let's start with Gator basketball. Something that I didn't really see coming. Colorado's playing game, De Silva and Simpson scored 40 of their 60 points, and I said Thursday morning that if Colorado plays that way against Florida, there's no way that Florida should lose to them. They didn't. Colorado's big man, it looked like he almost looked like a baby Shaq. Like, give him the ball down low, he's going to find a way to put the ball in the hoop. I don't know how much of a Micah Hanlockton not playing affected them, but that was a key reason why Florida lost to Colorado Thursday or Friday.
Well, you're facing a big man force, and then you're facing refs that are going to call every single foul ever. Now, listen, I'm not saying that in terms of the Gators got jobbed. I don't believe that. I'm just saying it in terms of, for both sides, the refs had a really quick whistle. And when you're dealing with a force inside, that's really hard to deal with because there's going to be contact every shot they're putting up. Versus if it's a guard throwing up threes, whatever, it's not going to get you in as much foul trouble. Where I thought they missed Micah Hanlockton most, and we did talk about this a bit last week, but we probably didn't even appreciate it enough, was the literal just math of just having another body to absorb fouls. Because, man, that foul trouble was really hurting them, especially late in the game.
3 dudes that were... Alex Condon fouled out.
Yep.
And then I think 3 dudes had 4 fouls with late in the game.
Walter Clayton had foul trouble the whole day, and he was by far their best offensive player all game. So the fouls were a big issue. I kind of believe that this is kind of a bigger college basketball problem overall. College basketball refs they have way too quick of a whistle. I mean, it's ridiculous, man. Like they don't let the guys play at all. I mean, that game, look, Florida's defense didn't play well. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that they had a great defensive effort. But I'm just saying that an NCAA tournament game, unless there's
egregious calls.
Well, unless there's like an Oakland situation where they've got a guy shooting threes that just can't miss, and there's kind of an outlier like that. A game shouldn't be 102 to 100. Like, that's because the refs are very involved, and there's a lot of stoppages in play. There's a lot of free throws. Again, I don't want this to come off as I'm blaming the refs for the Gators' loss. That's not what I mean here. I just mean that on both ends of the court, I thought it was a poorly officiated game, and I thought the refs weren't really letting both teams play basketball. They were getting involved too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, I hate, regardless of the sport, whether it's football or basketball, when an official is involved in the game. I know that at the very end of the game, I forget who it was for Colorado that had a push off on the baseline and puts the J up. I'm fine with the no call because that's what I want my big games to be like, regardless of the sport. There's nothing more annoying than when there's a big game like we saw in the Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl where you throw a pass interference and the whole game you set the precedent that you're going to let them play the entire time. I am always in favor of swallowing the whistle, let the players play. And if it's egregious, then you call it. It did seem like it went a little too far. And then what got worse was that referee, I forget his name, whoever it was, Gator fans know him. They baited Todd going into a technical.
100%.
And when you just do stuff like that, that's just petty.
And that was the difference in the game. That was the difference in the game.
Yeah.
It was 2 free throws.
Yep.
And Colorado won by 2. That was literally the game. And Todd Golden mentioned it, after the game. He said, I've gotten 3 texts in my entire career. He's given me 2 of them.
Yeah, that sounds...
Come on.
1 + 1's... Yeah, it's adding up.
And I've said this 3 times already, so apologies for repeating myself. I really want to make sure it's not coming off that we're blaming the refs for this loss. The Gators didn't play well enough, plain and simple. They should have played better on defense. They did miss Micah Handlock, and I do believe, I think, and I'm guilty of, hand up, I'm guilty of it, because I said it on our podcast last week, and I was thinking this the whole time before heading into the game. My thinking was, I felt like because Micah Handlockton wasn't a big scorer,
he was,
and because they did have another they had another big you felt really good about coming off the bench, and Alex Condon, who is obviously going to start in place of Micah Handlockton, I thought they were fine. I didn't believe before the game tipped off that I would find myself at any point in the game being like, man, I really wish the big 7-footer was out there. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, would you have liked to have another tree throwing his hands up, protecting the rim. And again, if the refs are going to call as many fouls as they did, how much would it have helped Florida to have that extra big that could absorb some of those fouls? So toward the end of the game, Alex Condon's not in foul trouble if you need a couple of buckets when he's one of your better offensive bigs. It was just frustrating, a disappointing end to a really, really, really fun season.
So is it
from Todd Golden's Gators?
How do you judge the season? Are you someone that puts all your eggs in the basket of it only thing matters is the NCAA tournament? Are you like, okay, they didn't start well, but they finished the regular season pretty good in the final month?
I'll put it this way. No, the season's not a failure. The season's not a disappointment because they lost. I think that when you say things like the only thing that matters is the NCAA tournament, it's similar to, the NFL, all that matters is the playoffs. It's when you say all that matters is the postseason wins. I believe there comes a point where that's true in a coach's career at a certain place. I don't believe Todd Golden is there yet. It's still only his second year. This team was considerably better than his team was last year. That's a stepping stone. There was a clear sign of growth. I do expect a decent amount of the big contributors this year to be back, which I think
Walter
will be
Clayton?
Hopefully.
Okay.
We'll see. We don't know for sure. Obviously, the jury's going to be out on quite. It's college basketball these days. The jury's out on literally every player on your roster. But if I had to guess, I would imagine that a decent amount of the contributors from this team will be back in orange and blue next year, when that was not the case starting this season. This season, there were very, very few guys returning that had played for Todd Golden the year before. That should be advantageous. They should make some other additions, probably more so in the transfer portal, but probably a little bit of a combo between the transfer portal and the high school ranks. I do believe Todd Golden, when you factor in that it's Gator basketball as opposed to Gator football, because football is different. We all know this. The expectation, I think a fair expectation, is I just need to keep seeing growth. Okay, I just need to keep seeing, like, when each season ends, I need to know that I went a little bit further, I did a little bit better than I did the year before. When you start having problems is when you start going backwards, because then the question becomes, are we progressing or are we regressing? Is this program headed in the right direction? The year 1 to year 2 sign clearly showed Todd Golden is headed in the right direction. It really sucks to lose. I really genuinely thought this team could be in the Sweet 16. So that sucks. If this was year 4 of Todd Golden, different conversation. Very different conversation. But the fact that it's year 2 of his first big-time job, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be reasonable, which is not something that Gator fans like to do a lot, including myself. Hand up. But I just think, look, if they say next year that they're a 5, 6, 7 seed, something like that, and they're playing a kind of a similar team that maybe had to be in the play-in or is a double-digit seed, next year, they cannot lose this type of game. Can't happen. Next year, they got to at least get to the round of 32. I would almost go as far as say they really need to be in the second weekend of the tournament next year.
Yeah, we'll see. Obviously, we'll know stuff with recruiting and who is going to transfer and things like that, I'm sure, shortly. college basketball.
They got that big old guy coming in, I think.
Yeah,
what's his name?
Footer, I forget. I know you're talking about that from IMG. He's like 7-something. Just watching the tournament, it feels like UConn and Purdue are probably going to play in the championship. Wouldn't you say?
Excuse you. The North Carolina Tar Heels are winning the national championship.
So yeah, I forgot. This guy over here is, when he's not rooting for his Gators, it's Carolina basketball.
Yeah, no, I'm obviously rooting for Carolina. I've got some ties there. I like the Heels. They've always been my second team besides behind the Gators. But realistically, I still think there's a chance for Purdue to do Purdue things
and trip over themselves.
I still believe. I think they were extra locked in this year because of what happened last year. They played well though. They have played really well. Don't get me wrong. They've dominated. I mean, they've just the two games weren't even a question. UConn, it's tough to see UConn losing, man.
Yeah, they've rolled everybody, and I think they're
Oliver Rio is his name, by the way.
It's like 7'5", 7'6".
The big man from IMG.
What's a height?
Height
Dude's skinny as a tree.
let's see, 7'6".
Yep.
He's from Quebec.
Nice. So
yeah, he's not small.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I mean, the dude can literally just stand up and literally dunk a basketball with having a 2-inch vert off the ground.
Apparently, he's got a lot of comparisons to Zach Edey. Wouldn't mind that.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. I'm kind of, you know, in college basketball. Anything else you want to hit on before?
Really quick, because I see this picture of him, and I think it's like a highlight tape. It's like a link on Twitter. He's obviously insanely tall, 7'6". He looks relatively built. I mean, he's definitely slender, but he's not just skin and bones. Like
he's not like Wemby.
He's got a little bit to him, yeah. So that's what's been a huge improvement for Zach Edey. Is he was pretty lanky when he got to Purdue, and he's put on a lot of muscle and gotten really, really good. Damn, is that going to be nice to have a 7'6" monster in the middle of the court for the Gators?
As long as he can stay healthy, man. Those bigs. If a big ever has an injury history, I mean, you see it a lot in the NBA. If you have an injury history, like you're not going backwards and saying, getting healthier. So if you got feet problems and knee problems and any kind of problem with joints, that's where I start to, have my issues and concerns.
That's where kind of going back to what Florida was dealing with this past weekend and Micah Hand-Lockton getting hurt. Micah Hand-Lockton, obviously not that tall. He's like right around 7 feet. So real short.
Yeah. Average human.
Right. But where I think Todd Golden needs to make sure that he kind of repeats what he did this past year, having that height is going to be nice. You still need other bigs. You still need probably 2 more bigs that can contribute and play significant minutes. You imagine Alex Condon will be back. I'm not sure. Is Tyrese Samuel out of eligibility? I don't know his name.
I don't even know. I'm that wrong person to ask that kind of information. I just know Clayton has the possibility of leaving. They don't know if he's going to come back, and
he's got okay. So Tyrese Samuel's done.
Okay,
this was his last season, but Condon will be back. Hand-Lockton, I think, should be back, right? Unless he's, I want to say he spent 3 years at Marshall, so he should have a COVID year if he wants to come back.
Yeah, he should.
Great podcasting, I know.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Somebody play some Jeopardy music in the background.
Eligibility.
Survey says.
Yeah, he's got 3 years of as of last year, he had 3 years remaining. So he's got
he probably redshirted and
2 more years,
all that stuff. So
and he wouldn't transfer anything. I would doubt. So
let's go down to Orlando, where the owners' meetings. I didn't even know it was happening. And the coaches were going to speak. The hip drop is now banned. I didn't even know when the hip drop term came into effect in football. Like, there's physicality. That's a new word in football. That's only used in football. Nothing else in the English dictionary. You say the word physicality other than football.
There's it in basketball sometimes.
Yeah, okay. And then you have the onboarding process that Balky's using. The new one that's being banned now is the hip drop, which is beyond stupid. I'm not surprised that it happened. It's, everybody's, well, it's all about the player safety and this and that. And then they'll say this and they'll add an extra game. And then, that whatever. My thing is, we know that this is going to happen in a playoff game, specifically in the second half. And it's going to happen on a 3rd and long. And the punt team is going to come on, and that 15-yard penalty is going to come on the field. And Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Jordan Love or whoever is going to capitalize and score a touchdown, and everybody's going to collectively lose their mind.
Yep.
And
that is correct.
I just defensively, and it's not like an instinctive play. It's not like a horse collar where you're trying to grab somebody and like that is a clear thing that you can grab and that that you can't grab. That rule. And it's also 10 years ago.
It's also something that's very, very easy to not do.
Yeah, and it's not something that it's not instinctive. It's not like, okay, I'm going to go for his hips and drop. Like, it's just a tackle.
It's just making a tackle, yeah.
It's just making a tackle, and then every now and then a dude gets rolled off from behind, and that's where you get the injury. Right.
So, my problem with this rule is not even necessarily this specific rule. I mean, I don't love this specific rule, but my bigger issue is that the NFL, over the last 4 to 5 years, has really started to play a dangerous game. This kind of started from what I can remember with the body weight rule with roughing the passer calls, and
blow the knee with Brady.
Yeah, for sure. But that was a long time ago, though.
Yeah, that was 07.
And that one was kind of that one felt at least a little bit isolated at the time. But like the body weight rule with Anthony Barr sacking Aaron Rodgers, breaking his collarbone, done for the year. That was maybe what, 2018, something like that. I think
around there. Yeah.
When that happened, and they then instituted that rule, because the league literally openly admitted, we don't want to see our star QBs get hurt. Okay, I understand that. I get it. The problem is, ever since then, they have instituted multiple rules, and this one being the latest. They have instituted multiple rules because a certain star player, it's always an offensive player, got injured in a certain way because he got tackled a certain way, whatever. You're playing a really dangerous game and you're on a really slippery slope when you start establishing this precedent that, okay, a star player gets hurt, we got to outlaw that tackle. Like, look, if Mark Andrews never got hurt on this injury last year, do you think this is instituted right now?
No, it wouldn't have been.
Correct.
No. Correct. And it happened to Pollard the year before in a playoff game.
Correct. Exactly. At some point, you have to just accept the fact that football is a violent sport and players will get injured. It's just the truth. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, look, we were talking about this morning on Catching Up with Tommy Mack. Let me be a prophet for a second and tell the future for you. Okay? This is going to be a real bold proclamation.
All right, you got the 8 ball.
This coming NFL season, the 2024 NFL season, within the first month, a star offensive player on a big name team is going to get hurt, and they will be done for the year.
That's a fact.
It's going to happen, okay? So what? When they get hurt, however they get hurt, if it's because of a tackle and not some non-contact thing, what are we going to say? Are we going to say, oh, well, we got to outlaw the way that this person got tackled because we can't have them getting hurt? It's football, man. Guys are going to get injured.
My biggest problem is like all these people, not all these guys, actually all of them. The ones that make the decision on this have never played football before. So they look at football as a frame-by-frame, picture-by-picture, and they think, okay, well, this isn't good, so we need to take it out. When if you've ever played the game, you know that that's not feasible.
It's reflexes.
Right.
Football is a fast game that you're reacting as it happens, and you're going 100 miles an hour. You don't have forever to think about all these rules that are being implicated, especially when you're taking away getting hit in the head, you're taking away getting hit down low, you're taking away the hip drop tackle. The smaller and smaller and smaller the target becomes to tackle somebody, it becomes impossible to tackle anybody at all.
Yeah, I want to get into this in the summer once we get into the dead time. Like, how long do we think the king of sports in America is going to be the NFL? Because remember growing up, it was always baseball. Not for us, but America's pastime was baseball, and then that changed. A lot of it with fantasy football and the explosion of cable television and everything. I just think, like, man, like 25, 30 years, how different the game will be. Because, I mean, like, if we're already tiptoeing down this line of eliminating that, like, how far are we really going to go and eliminate these rules to where it's just basically going to be two-hand touch or flag football?
To your point, this might be more of a summer episode to really get down this rabbit hole, but can I put my conspiracy theory
just throw it out there
hat on for a minute?
Move on to what Doug Pederson said.
Do you think, yes or no, do you think it's a coincidence that in the last 10 years, more like 5 years, the NFL has really, really put a lot of investment into this NFL flag thing?
No, it's not a coincidence at all. There's the reason why. There's a reason for it.
Look, when it's a June episode or something and we're in the middle of stuff, we'll really get down into that. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, and there's a reason why they put in the Pro Bowl and all those things. They see the future. It's
20 years ago when we were watching games, we never saw these commercials for NFL flag. And that's like this huge thing now that they're trying to grow, and it's this whole big deal.
I know. I mean,
I'm just saying.
I see what the growth has done for flag football in girls for high school, because I coach high school at Baldwin, and I see like what it was 10 years ago, like when I was a freshman, because our team made the Final Four for the state, and that was like a big deal. And there wasn't many teams. Now there is like way more. Like people like want you to do it now. So,
which is great. I got nothing against growing the flag football game. But
it's going to evolve into the sport that we watch eventually, and what we want to do. It's
been much more recent, again, probably the last like 4 to 5 years or so, that the NFL has gotten really involved.
A couple other notes from the owners' meeting. The NFL is planning to play another game on Christmas Day, which is on Wednesday. We were talking about this on Jaguars Today with Dempsey and Tony Smith. So how are they going to do this? It's in the middle of the week. You can count it from the week prior, that 22nd, that Sunday, or the following Sunday. Are you going to tell the team that's going to play for the following weekend to play on Monday night instead of Sunday? That's football is family, as we said.
Player safety, right?
Player safety. Oh, for sure.
I remember a couple. I'm sorry to cut you off. I remember during the 2020 COVID season, when stuff was all over the place. Remember that they played some Tuesday games and some Wednesday games because they had to make them up and all that. I remember listening to Bill Simmons in his podcast, and he said at the time he put his own conspiracy theory cap on, and he was like, the NFL is using COVID and having certain games that they have to reschedule in the middle of the week. They're using this as a prime opportunity to see how they could maybe pull this off and have Tuesday games, Wednesday games, and play more and more and more of those. And now Christmas is a great opportunity again for them to try to slip this in. When he said that at the time, that was 4 years ago now, I was like, come on, man. Like, you're being insane. Like, no, they're not going to start playing games.
Oh, here's another one.
And look where we are now. Well, so I have to hand up. Bill Simmons was right.
So the like MLK Day is always the NBA, just like Christmas. Remember, the Bills were supposed to play that snow game on that Saturday. Gets moved to Monday, and the Bills played the Steelers on that 4:30, and then there was a game. I forget who it was that played that Monday night, and it did huge numbers. So now going forward, you're probably going to have 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, 2 on Monday because of that. Oops. Now, granted, obviously the NFL can't predict the snow and all that in Buffalo, but that's another thing that they're going to do moving forward because you can profit off of it, and you saw what the numbers did instead of playing all 3 games on Sunday.
I was, again, like I said a minute ago, when Bill said that, I thought he was crazy. I thought there's no way the NFL is ever going to start playing regular midweek games. Now that they're going to play them on Christmas, because that's like playoff crunch time. These are important games.
It doesn't make sense. It's not.
These aren't preseason games they're screwing around with.
You could make sense of it by if it's in I would go as late as to say around Thanksgiving, you could say, okay, this team is going to have a bye the week before or for that weekend, and then for the following week, put them on a Monday night.
Yeah.
You don't do that on Christmas. That's the second to last week of the regular season.
So it begs the question, if they are willing to do that and put games that are that important at absolute crunch time during the season, you're talking a couple weeks removed from the playoffs now. If you think that they're not going to start making this a more normal thing that they trickle throughout the entire season, you're insane.
And it's just all about the money. They look at windows, the Christmas day, because it was always the NBA, and they can say, okay, everybody's at home, or they're watching on their TV, how we profit. It's all it is. It's all it is.
So, counterpoint to all of this, because this is a pretty anti-NFL argument here. We're making the NFL look very heartless right now and hypocritical and not caring about player safety, which trust me, I'm never going to argue that. However, as CBAs continue to get negotiated every 4 or 5 years or
Something
however
like
often
that,
they do
yeah.
it between the Players Association and the NFL. The Players Association, they can hate it all they want. They can hate potentially adding an extra game, which we know is coming. They can hate playing these midweek games. They can hate Thursday Night Football. They can hate all this stuff. But so long as those are monetarily successful and it raises the overall league revenue, which then raises the salary cap, which then raises salaries, this stuff ain't going to stop. Because if I'm a player, I might hate it. But if I'm able to see the success and the dollar signs keep going up for me, I'm probably going to bite my tongue and deal with it.
Yeah.
100%.
For sure.
And we've talked about this before. I'm not trying to make this a whole CBA conversation, but we see how honestly kind of powerless the CBA is during so many of these negotiations, because the players, we see this with contract holdouts. The players have one really powerful negotiating leverage tool. And what is that? It's withholding their services. Their one real threat they can give to the owners is, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, we are not going to play. Right? There's a shorter list than I think most people think of players that can afford to do that and just sit out. If there's a lockout, that can just sit out half a season or a whole season and not get paid. But if you're the 49th man on the roster,
yeah, people say that.
Dude, you ain't doing that, man. You're signing yes because you need football games to be played.
The vast majority of the people in the National Football League, they work paycheck to paycheck just like everybody else. I mean, if you can go back and remember the lockout that happened in 2011, there were guys like Terrell Owens that had played in the league for a long time, and he was stressing that he wasn't getting paid because there was no camps going on, there were no games, like nothing was going on. And that's Terrell Owens. So imagine what it's like for the vast majority of the guys in the league, unless you're a quarterback that has endorsements that's getting paid $20+ million a year. So there was that from the owners' meeting. And then Doug Pederson, there was a lot of things that he said. He spoke for 30 minutes. There was a lot of guys from our local media that were down there in Orlando. The one thing that kind of turned my head, it kind of surprised me, was the quote where Doug said that Trevor Lawrence is light years ahead. Was it maturity? I think he said mentally. When it comes to the draft that happens in a month from now, the Jags could crush the draft. They could get the best DB. They can get the best receiver. They can get, the 6th, 7th rounder. They could be an impactful player. And if Trevor Lawrence does not play well, none of this matters. You can look at the New York Jets when they crushed Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, and they got Quentin Williams from a couple years ago, the interior D tackle. They didn't hit on the quarterback. If Doug Pederson and Trent Baalke can't, no matter how the relationship is, if they don't vote well, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play well, none of this matters. And so what kind of made me want to bring this topic up was when we went into last year. 2 years ago was when the Jacksonville went on that playoff run, and we were like, okay, Jacksonville's going to take a step up. And I was like, yeah, they are, but I think it's not going to be as much as fans think because Trevor still made those mistakes against Denver and London, throwing that interception in the end zone against Houston. And I thought he would eliminate that from his playbook, from his mistakes. And he still did it last year. And Doug said eventually, I think not long after that, he was like, yeah, a lot of this stuff he can fix. That's in the pocket and the fumbles. I just don't know if you've done that I'm not even going to count his rookie year. If you've done that the last 2 years, how much of that is fixing going into year 4 for him?
Here's what I believe about Trevor Lawrence with the now 3-year sample size. You're right, more like 2 because we'll toss out the rookie year. Trevor is pretty similar to a lot of quarterbacks in terms of when guys around him, particularly the offensive line, the running game, are producing and things are going well and the defense is playing well and he doesn't feel like he has to be Superman on every single play, you do see a lot of those mistakes go away. There are a lot of games when the Jags have a lead most of the game, or they're at least right in it, neck and neck, and the running game's working, and guys are on the same page, the line is blocking. You saw a lot of this in 2022. I'm talking about more so than 2023, especially that back half of the year. And magically, a lot of these really bad mistakes that you're talking about disappear. He doesn't make as many. When the opposite is true, when linemen are getting beat, he doesn't have any time. His pockets are collapsing. Every run play is getting stuffed for -2 yards. They're losing. Those bad mistakes happen a lot more because he's pressing, right? And I don't disagree with you that when the coach says this is all super fixable stuff, okay, then why hasn't it been fixed yet? And is it really that fixable? What's fixable, in my opinion, is the stuff around him improving so that he won't feel like he has to press and make those types of mistakes.
I just, with Trevor and a lot of those bad picks, a lot of that's not coaching. It's not like you're putting a bad play in front of him and you're trying to make him look like Superman. I mean, we saw in the Ravens game, he rolls left and he fumbles. That's not a coaching thing. That is 100% a Trevor thing. Before the half, whenever he throws the ball and you gotta know that you gotta throw the ball out of bounds or get a quick play to throw to the end zone, he throws it, makes a completion, and time runs out. Like, that's a Trevor thing. That's not coaching. That's more of my big picture that I don't know. I mean, there comes to a point where if you show me who you are time and time again, I'm going to believe that it's going to happen again. Like, Cam Robinson's been hurt a lot of times the last couple of years. I'm going to expect him not to play an entire season this year.
What's the definition of insanity?
I'm doing the same thing over and over and accepting different results. Was there anything that's really stuck out from you with what Doug said yesterday?
It didn't stick out unless you are a good translator of coach speak, which I like to pride myself on. We talked about this again this morning on Catching Up with Tommy Mack when he was talking about bringing in Mitch Morse and how it's not a knock on Luke Fortner. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, anytime anybody says like not to be, what do they say, like not to be offensive, and then they say something offensive right after. Anytime you start with that, it usually means that word.
For those that don't know, although if you're watching this podcast, I'm sure you consume a lot of Jags media availability and that type of thing, and you probably do have a decent sense of this. But for those that may not know, there is kind of a way to decipher a lot of coach speak and what these guys say. There's a friendly way that they will say things where you can kind of sort of figure out what they're actually saying. This was a pretty classic example of that. When a coach doesn't believe in a guy after a season of poor play, so they bring in someone else in that position that is probably going to take their place, how often do you hear that coach say, well, you want competition at every position. Competition is healthy. They love throwing out the C word. Competition, competition, competition. Okay. So according to Doug, it had nothing to do with Luke Fortner's poor play. he brought in Mitch Morse because
he was a good guy that's available.
some competition at center is good,
Right.
right? Let me flip that on you. Let's pretend he's asked about bringing in Mac Jones. Do you think he's going to use the word competition?
No.
Hell no!
He'll never
Of course
do
he's
that.
not!
No, never.
Competition my ass, man. Mitch Morse is the starting center, bro. I mean, come on. What are we doing? So, when a player has not performed well, anyone with eyes can see that Luke Fortner was horrendous last year. After the season, they bring in a veteran center who was very good. Bills fans were sad to see him go. A good, strong, solid player at his old place, a team that went to the playoffs and had a really good rushing attack, by the way. When that player comes in, and then the GM and the coach are asked about it, or I think just Doug has been asked about it since they've actually signed Morse, and they're asked about it, and they say competition, that means that the new guy is taking the old guy's spot. That's what it means, okay? Because again, I guarantee you, if Doug Pederson is asked about Mac Jones, he's not going to talk about competition with Trevor. The whole fan base would have a meltdown if that happened, by the way.
We saw
But
that
no
2
one,
years
no
ago
one,
with, Minshew.
nobody with a brain legitimately believes that in training camp there's going to be a competition between Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones. Now, if we're halfway through the season and Trevor's terrible and they've won 2 games, different story. But right now, as things currently stand, no one actually believes that.
No, and quarterback is a little different too. I mean, all the guys that you bring in, Savage, Darby, you're going to prop up the competition
Right.
notion. But I mean, yeah, we all know.
And then that's another translation thing with something Doug said. When he said, "Yeah, we got a nice little mix of guys back there at safety and corner with the DBs." The translation for that is, I don't really know who's going to start yet.
Yeah, outside of Tyson Campbell, well, we got a mix of guys that can play.
Right,
that can
but
do multiple things. That can play nickel. Talking about Savage and Antonio Johnson. He was asked straight up yesterday. I think it was Jamal St. Cyr asked him, "Do you expect Antonio Johnson to replace Rayshon Jenkins?" He goes, "I expect him to." And that kind of put him in a position where it's a yes or no, not like we're an open-ended question where you could just say whatever you want.
Yeah.
But so it'll be interesting.
He's going to
what
compete,
they do.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah, again, a nice little, when someone says, when a coach says, we have a nice little mix of guys, or they say, another classic one is, you can never have enough good fill in the blank any
Pass
position.
rushers.
That means I have no clue who's going to start yet.
Right. Yeah.
Now,
It's
I have a
kinda
question
like
for you.
kind of like the old if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Now I got a question for you in regards to the DBs thing. Because I was thinking about this. When Doug said, I expect Antonio Johnson to replace Rayshon. Okay. So that means my 2 starting safeties are done. They're inked. Most likely. Regarding, knock on wood, regarding injury, something like that. More than likely, opening day, Andre Sisco, Antonio Johnson are your starting safeties, correct?
Yeah.
Let's go to corner. Doug said Darnell Savage is expected to be
Inside corner
nickel. Okay. I know Tyson Campbell is one outside corner. Where does this leave Ronald Darby? Because if they were to play a football game today, he'd probably be your other starting outside corner. But you and I have talked about this on many occasions, as well as many people involved in the Jags beat reporters, whatever. We all are pretty confident that they're drafting a corner relatively high. Even if it's not at 17, it's going to be at latest like 3rd round.
There's a 95% chance that they're going corner in the 1st or 2nd round.
Right. That guy's going to be your outside starting corner outside Tyson Campbell, correctly?
Day one, yeah.
So is Ronald Darby the odd man out here? Or what?
He's probably a rotational guy. I mean, from that sense, I mean, they are going to get a Quinion Mitchell or one of the 2 Bama guys.
Terron Arnold or
Kool-Aid.
Or Cooper DeJean.
Cooper DeJean. There's another guy I can't think of off the top of my mind. That's going to go up at the top, or they're going to get one in the 2nd round. Like, that is a, I hate to say it's a fact, but it's a fact.
I mean, yeah.
Because there's only one glaring issue that is on this roster where you're like, that's not good. And that's the other corner opposite of Tyson Campbell. And that's it.
It's just, and I understand, I very much understand the argument of best player available versus need. you should typically lean best player available. But again, it's a little bit of a puzzle, and it's a little bit of a... You have to have a little bit of a give and take there. And one area in the draft where I think Trent Baalke has fallen short is not just that a lot of his picks have not panned out well enough, but I think that he maybe should have factored in need a little bit more with some of these picks. You can't... I don't believe that you can go black and white strictly by the board every single pick. I think that it needs to matter. I think that value at that position and best player available is extremely important and should be the most important factor. However, let's say in the first round they took a different position other than corner. Okay, so that need is still there. You get to the second round, and your best player on your board that's available is I'm going to say it, and every Jags fan is going to cringe. Let's say that player is an off-ball linebacker. But your third player, best available, is a corner. In my opinion, in that circumstance, you need to take the corner. Because that linebacker's not going to play. This is how Chad Mumas and Ventrell Millers end up on the team. And in my opinion, that's a mistake. That's a misuse of picks.
I always look at the draft as your first round's a day one guy. Your second and third round should be day one guys. And then you get to 4, 5, 6, it's, okay, let's get lucky. Hopefully this guy can play
we're taking flyers.
Some important roles when a guy gets hurt in front of them. And if he pops and he's a day one guy, then we hit a home run. That's how I look at the draft. Like, it kind of gets tricky when you get, if Brock Bowers is available at 17, do I go get him knowing I already have Evan Ingram, knowing that I drafted Brent Strange a year ago, but Brock Bowers is a phenomenal athlete that I believe, regardless of whatever team you put him on, whatever system you put him into, he's going to flourish and do well.
Right.
I don't know how, other than that, I don't really see,
Which again, it comes back to my point of like, yes, there are certain, you don't draft like before you're on the clock and before you know exactly who's going to be available. You don't just say, okay, we're drafting the next best available guard or whatever. You don't pick a position before you see who's available. You don't do that. That's bad practice.
So, for example, like at tackle, like Cam Robinson and Walker Little both have 1 year left on their deal. So I think it was Chad Ryder who he had put out a 4-round mock. He had the Jags picking a tackle, I think it was, because he knows that the Jags need a tackle for their future outside of Anton. So that's where you get into the mix of things of that nature. But I'm not getting a first round tackle because he's not going to play. I'm in win right now mode because after this year you got to start paying Trevor. I got to win right now. So whoever my first round pick is, that dude's got to be day one, and I got to win right now with him.
I can be talked into a tackle because
he better be good.
Because if I get a tackle, I can cut Cam Robinson. I can save $16 million against my cap. I can move Anton Harrison to my left tackle, and I can move this tackle to my right.
Okay, under that logic, I would too. I mean, I would have cut Cam when they cut Darius Williams and all those guys. But
I agree.
I think that the way that they did it, if Cam's still here, the only way he leaves is
if he says I'm not restructuring.
There's that, or a team is in dire need of a tackle when someone goes to camp and their tackle goes out for the year.
And they'll overtrade.
That's when his value will go up through the roof, and then they'll trade him. Other than that, Cam's going to be on this team.
I think I agree. I tend to believe that, just like you said, they would have cut him right before free agency to try to be more aggressive with extra people they tried to sign. So, I don't know. It's a little worrisome to me that there seems to be a very real world where they just sit on that $21 million cap number for Cam, which I don't think is acceptable.
No.
You got to ask him to restructure, or you need to move on and save $16 million. The guy never plays more than like half a season at most. The guy has a big time availability problem, and when he is on the field, he's a good player. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but he's not Trent Williams. Okay, it's not like when he does play, he's the best tackle in football. He's just serviceable. He's like a B-plus player when he plays. And that's half the year, and he's really expensive. I would move on, personally.
Before we get out of here, I saw from Mike Garafolo, the NFL Network. So you know how HBO has a Hard Knocks in the offseason, and then recently Amazon has done like an in-season, pretty much like spinoff of the Hard Knocks. Now it's being reported that Hard Knocks will focus on the entire division and not just one of the division has not been decided yet. I guess it's going to be just preseason training camp. I like that idea. I mean, I'm not a big...
Well, that's for the in-season one, right?
This says Hard Knocks.
Yeah, it's the Hard Knocks in-season.
In-season Hard Knocks will now focus on entire division.
Yeah, so that's the one that's during the year, not the training camp one.
So I guess it's the Amazon one then. So what division... There's one division.
Amazon. What Amazon? I'm confused.
So there's Amazon they always done like a Hard Knocks in season. Like they did the Cowboys a couple years ago. They did the Cardinals.
That's been HBO. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They did the Dolphins this past year.
Yeah. That's right. Okay. I'm tripping. So I think Amazon's done one too though in the past. Unless I'm tripping. The one division I would want to see, and it's pretty easy for me off the top of my head, is the NFC East. With what just happened with Philly. I mean, we all talk about...
It's HBO.
Okay. I mean, we all talk about how bad Jacksonville was in 8-3. Philly was probably worse than Jacksonville. The only difference was Philly started 10-1 and we started 8-3.
Yeah.
And we missed the playoffs, and Philly almost did.
Yeah.
And then we saw them get routed by an okay Tampa team that was at the time. And you have that storyline. You have Dallas, Mike McCarthy, Dak. You have that whole deal. Wouldn't surprise me if they have a bad season that Mike McCarthy's gone.
You have two coaches on the hot seat.
You have those two. You have, it's been reported plenty of times now that Brian Daboll hasn't got along with a lot of people in the building of the Giants, and you don't know what Daniel Jones is. And then Washington's going to be this new up-and-coming team that has the second pick. I think second or third, second. Yeah, because New England's third. They got the second pick, and they got all these. They just got all these guys in free agency from the cap.
And the book is, at least that I've seen, that they like Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have the Heisman winner on that as well if it was the NFC East, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I like more of what Netflix did with the quarterback, and then I'll be interested to see what the receiver thing is. Hard Knocks is kind of a thing in the past. Like, I'm tired of seeing a guy that when it was D2 school and had to eat ramen noodles, and then
it's also not. It's not what it used to be.
Yeah,
it's not as good as it used to be, in my opinion. But the teams, like the Jets, basically told Hard Knocks that like you weren't going to get certain access that they've got.
Yeah,
like they didn't get access to the cuts. That's like
the main reason why you watch.
Yeah, like what the hell are we doing? So I didn't like that.
Yeah, Hard Knocks is kind of a thing in the past. I still watch it, but it's not as, it's not appointment viewing, like right then when the night comes out. I get to watch it eventually. You see some funny stuff, like the Jets player, the charcuterie board. I think that's how you call it. He called it a carcucci board. And then like he thought it was for real, and the other players were busting him up. That was funny. What's one thing you want to say before you get out of here? Anything tournament-wise, SEC, Kentucky, you think...
would you fire Calipari?
It ain't gonna happen.
You don't think so?
No, there's no shot it's gonna happen.
Why do you say that?
I don't see a world where Kentucky pulls. They do that. There's no way.
They're pretty damn angry, bro. Also,
I know they are, but
also
I don't see it happening.
I was listening to Andy Staples' podcast a couple days ago, and they were talking about it. When he kind of broke it down, he was talking about like, when you put it all together, his buyout is honestly like pretty doable. It's a lot more doable than people think. Because apparently, I want to say his contract right now runs through 2029. And he has it in his contract that if he gets fired and is owed the buyout, Kentucky can pay it yearly. So they just pay what his annual salary would have been as if he's still the coach. And then if he were to take another job, which he of course would if he's Calipari, however much he's getting paid by the new school gets taken off of Kentucky's tab. So say he did get fired, and I want to say Kentucky would owe him like $6 million a year, I think, for the next, I think till 2029. And then if he goes somewhere and makes $3 million a year, Kentucky can pay him $3 million.
Oh yeah,
that's nothing.
I just don't see them.
So the buyout's not a huge deal. The real question, and this is always the question, the real question is, who would they replace him with? And when you're Kentucky, you can get almost anybody you want. So it's not like they'd be short on options. It's just, how does the current coaching market kind of look, and who would you want to take it? You're not bringing Rick Pitino back, I don't think. I feel like Dusty May was probably one of the hotter names, and he just took the Michigan job. Dan Hurley, I don't think would leave UConn.
And then you never know, like what from.
I mean, he might, man. It's Kentucky,
schools.
Dude. Kentucky. Yeah. I feel like it's Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, and Kansas.
Blue Bloods.
Those four, unless I'm missing someone. I don't know if I'm missing someone. Those four. Almost any job, any coach in America would leave their current job for that school.
Yes.
Right? You'd think. UConn's kind of tough because they're probably one small tier below that, but they've had a ton of recent success. I still think you'd leave for Kentucky. I heard people talking about, like, they would call, like, Brad Stevens, see if he was interested. That'd be crazy. If Brad Stevens tells you that he wants the job.
Oh, yeah. I just don't see Brad Stevens.
I don't either.
The gig what he's got now, and then going back to the college game, what the college game is now compared to what it was whenever he was coaching at Butler.
All right, what about this one? What if Jay Wright says he'll take the job?
Then you give the job to Jay Wright.
I think so too.
Because I mean, Coach Cal's he's been at Kentucky for 13 years now, 14 years now,
and he has not evolved whatsoever.
No, he said after the game in this press conference that, well, the impact that we have on these freshmen, it's like, okay.
Because we're helping their families.
Because we're helping
Give me a freaking break,
okay,
dude. They're helping their families. Shut up.
You can only do that with an 18-year-old. And other guys aren't doing that with guys that are transferring in from other schools. I've heard.
You think Florida hasn't helped?
Did you watch the part of my take from the day after Kentucky lost?
Yes, and they had Matt Jones on from KSR.
Yes.
Yes.
And he was like, Calipari's just hard-headed, and he wants to do it his way, and that's going to be it.
They use Nick Saban as the comparison. Nick Saban's the greatest coach in the history of college sports, right?
Because he evolved.
Nick Saban was winning national championships a certain way. Football changed, and he changed. And they said this on the show on Pardon My Take. Matt Jones was saying, Calipari would never go hire a Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, he's never.
Like Saban did.
Yeah, and that was one thing he said. Like he never listens to his assistants, and you can't have that. Regardless of the sport, you're as a head coach, you are as good as your assistants. There's never been a good team that goes far and makes a playoff run with average assistants, but the head coach is good. It doesn't happen.
I just think the one and done freshman way that Calipari has been doing it is clearly not really working anymore because they're having to go up against guys with 4 to 5 years of college experience. Now we're about a year away from basically anyone that had a COVID season of eligibility from that going away. So if he stuck with this path and kept it chugging, that would help him a little.
Yeah, but still.
But marginally.
You still got to compete with 22-year-olds when your guys are 18 still.
Yes. And yeah, the whole we've done this and helped so many families and him hanging his hat on that.
That's just you defending yourself and you're going to go down.
Man, that ain't going to play unless you're winning ball games, dude.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. I feel like Calipari could be gone. I kind of feel like it may have already happened by now, but
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you that it's definitely not going to happen.
I will be shocked.
I would say if
you see a statement that they part ways with Coach Cal.
I would say it's like 70-30.
Okay.
That he stays.
I say 99-1. Last thing before we go, before I got to get out of here, the Eagles are playing in Brazil came out as of 35 minutes ago. That game will be on Peacock. So pay your $10 and you can watch that game unless you live in Philly or whoever the other team is. So
That's getting outrageous.
there you go. There you go. Amazon's on Thursday. Peacock will be probably 4 or 5 games. And then you can watch the other games on your antenna. And the cable game will be on ESPN for Monday Night Football. So
It's getting ridiculous, man. They did. So last offseason, the NFL switches Sunday Ticket over to YouTube. They dive headfirst in with YouTube TV and do all this YouTube. I know you're a YouTube TV guy. I'm a YouTube TV guy. They do this whole thing about YouTube TV, YouTube TV, YouTube TV. That's how we're consuming games, blah, 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 blah. Oh, by the way, there's these exclusive rights games that you can't get on your YouTube TV, and you have to get these other apps instead. It's ridiculous, dude.
Yeah,
this whole basically like pay-per-view nonsense that they're going with exclusively on Peacock, exclusively on Prime. Prime's not a huge deal because most people have an Amazon Prime account. But like, come on, man. Come on.
It's annoying. Well, I mean, guys like me and you it doesn't affect, but because we know how to search the internet and get a free link, but the ones that are 65 years old and only know how to use a remote from their TV, it's the ones that affects them. And I know it's not really their demo, but I mean, I don't know. The NFL doesn't care. They only care about the bottom dollar, and that's it. So, all right, I got to get to practice. We got to roll. I'm Dylan Denmark. That's Graham Marsh. Get us on Twitter at 1010XL Denmark and at 1010XL Graham. I think that's it.
Yes, sir.
I'm done. It's Tuesday. We'll hit you up later in the week. Y'all have a good rest of your week for today and tomorrow, and we'll break down the Sweet 16 and whatever else happens in the world of sports. Until then, see you.